Okay, so after finance, the second step of students' process is going to be the visa once they have their I-20 and their acceptance letter. So, what are the broad categories of visa that international students get, and what's the general process like?
Great question. So there are three student visas to the US.
Mm-hmm.
There is the M visa, which is for like it's very limited. It's like 1 year of vocational studies, very uncommon. The
Mm-hmm.
J visa is for short-term exchange, so typically like a 1 semester or maybe 1 year or something very kind of limited. Fulbright scholarships, as I said, Fulbright students or Fulbright scholars, I guess, coming in are
Yeah.
typically on a J visa, so that's more of a limited. But the third category is the biggest one for international students. That's the degree seeking or the like English proficiency category, and that's the F. So F
Okay.
is the most common. That's for academic study, um, and in order to get the F visa, a few things kind of have to fall into place. So first, you have to apply and be admitted, as we've already discussed. You get that
Mm-hmm.
admit letter. You show proof of funding, so you have the financial support that you need for 1 full year of studies. That's the requirement in order to be able to be issued what's called a Form I-20, or it may just be called the I-20,
Mm-hmm.
and that is basically like an invitation from the institution to you, showing the US government, like, hey, we want this student to come study with us. They've
Yeah.
met all of our criteria. They should get a visa. It's kind of an endorsement from the school. So once you have that, students can make an appointment with their local US embassy or US consulate, whatever is kind of close and whatever jurisdiction they're in,
Yeah.
for a visa interview. They
Mm.
will have a list of documents and materials that they need to bring with them. This can be a little it can be a little intimidating for students because the list you really need to focus on is the one that is issued by the US government.
Mm-hmm.
And the government does not have historically super friendly website information. There it's a little clunkier.
Mm.
Um, Often universities will kind of give you they'll give you their own list and try to make it a little bit easier, but
Mm-hmm.
you definitely want to kind of compare that against the Department of State's official requirements list just to make sure that you're all set. So all the items I mentioned previously, so your admit letter, your I-20, those will all be required documents.
Mm-hmm.
Financial support you're going to take to them as well. They may require some other materials too, and you want to make sure that you have those for your interview. You have your interview. It's typically pretty short, pretty quick. They have to do a lot of these. So you want to make sure that you are prepared to talk about why you've chosen the school you've chosen, that you're prepared to explain your financial ties back to your home country. Um, One of the things you have to demonstrate for a US visa is what's called non immigrant intent. So the F visa does not have like a legal set path to like permanent residency or US citizenship. So it's
Mm-hmm.
important for the consular officers that are issuing the visa to have the understanding that you are planning to go to the US, do this program, and then come back to your home country. And
Mm-hmm.
many
Yeah.
students, as we know, of course, ultimately would like to live and work in the US, and that's all perfectly fine. And there are pathways for that. But at the time you're getting your F1 visa, that's not the conversation you're having.
Got it. Yeah, that was going to be my follow-up question because 98% of all international students who go abroad to study, the sole purpose is to eventually work
Hmm.
and get a PR in the
Yes.
country of their choice. So I just want that was going to be my follow-up question, but thanks for clarifying.
Yeah, absolutely. So there is a pathway that exists. I mean, very, very briefly, you've got your student visa, you do OPT, you can qualify for an H-1B visa typically as a work visa.
Yeah.
And then that leads you to a path to being eligible for a green card or permanent residency, and
Mm-hmm.
then potentially citizenship. So that's like a many years long-term plan, no guarantees, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But at the time you're getting your F1 visa, you want to make sure that you demonstrate that non-immigrant intent, because that is typically if you sit through like a visa interview and you're denied a visa, the government gives you a reason. There's a denial code, and that is one of the most common denial codes issued, is that they did not demonstrate non-immigrant intent. So the
Got
consular
it.
officer thought, oh, they plan to go and stay in the US. And at this stage,
Mhm.
that's not permitted.
Yeah,
So you want to make sure that you're
you play your
prepared to
cards.
kind of have those conversations.
Yeah, you got to play your cards right.
Yeah, exactly.
Mainly put in simple words.
Yes, that
Yeah.
that is an excellent way to summarize it.
Got it. Fair enough. So, let's assume a student finishes their program in the US and they would like to continue working, or at least stay back another year or two to look for opportunities, potential opportunities. So what's the pathway like for that? Do we have like a work permit visa that they can apply after graduation, or is does it or do they just get it like after they complete the graduation and meet the expected criteria? They're like, hey, cool, here's your reward. Do we have like a handout system?
So it's a little less of a handout system. You do have to apply for it. So basically, once you are when you have an F1 visa, you are
Mhm.
eligible for what's called OPT, optional practical training. All
Okay.
students who are on an F1 visa have the potential to do 1 year of OPT after they complete their degree. So, if you're
Mm-hmm.
an undergraduate student, once you have your 4 years done, then you're eligible for 1 year to work. Same for postgraduate students. Once you have your 2 years, you're eligible for 1 year to work.
Mm-hmm.
You have to work with your immigration advisor on campus to apply for that. It's
Okay.
um, it's my understanding is that it's not too complicated, but it's a very specific process with
Mm-hmm.
very specific timing. So your immigration officer in the like ISSS International Student Services office will definitely be talking to you about what that process is like throughout your time there. So if you make it to like even your second year without hearing something about OPT, you're not listening because they're definitely talking about it. But they'll help you apply for it. You need to show like good academic standing and things like that. So you basically have to like do well in school to kind of like earn your right to OPT.
Uh-huh.
Um, and then even if you're granted OPT, you still then have to like find a job. So for some students, they maybe did like an internship or some research or something with a particular company or organization. And so
Mm-hmm.
they maybe know if I get OPT, they have said I will be able to work with them. Some students are like, I want OPT and I'm going to do that, but I still need to find a job. So it just kind of depends on your individual
Cool.
scenario, but your immigration advisor will help you through that whole process.
Yeah.
Now,
Case by case.
yes, it's very case by case.
Yeah.
Um, but if you are in what's called like a STEM designated program, so the USCIS has, yeah, these codes that they give to every like academic program. And if your code is one of these STEM designated codes, so obviously like math or engineering, any of those majors. But sometimes you can get a major you don't expect. Like there are a number of like business courses that are actually STEM designated as well.
Mm-hmm.
I know that one of our partners is primarily a design school, but they have a number of STEM designated programs too. So obvious ones are pretty easy to catch, but you may have the opportunity to get one that you're not quite expecting that would be STEM designated.
Yeah.
But the reason you'd be interested in a STEM designated course is because that allows you the opportunity to actually have 2 bonus years of OPT for a total of 3 years of working experience that you can do after you complete your degree. So those are pretty highly sought after opportunities.
It's a sweet deal. No one would
Yeah,
want one go. Yeah.
yeah,
Sweet deal
absolutely.
gives you a very big window to find opportunities and build a life and build your career in the United States and
Yes.
live the
And
American dream eventually.
yes, and ultimately, if that is kind of your long-term plan, again, we're not exactly having that conversation with the consular officer, but that is kind of the pathway to it. So if you work at a place and they really like you and they're able to sponsor you for a work visa, an
Mm-hmm.
H-1B typically, then that visa has like a set out pathway to uh, permanent residency, and then ultimately, a lot of people go for citizenship after that.
Fair enough. So the visa process itself can be a little intimidating for international students. They're like, Am I going to get it? Are they going to, ask me to come back later? Am I going to get rejected? There's all these questions that students have when they're going in for their interview for the very first time. So, are there any resources that AECC USA or the university, our partner universities, provide to help students with the whole process?
Yeah, so as far as our partner institutions, a lot of them will provide, as I said, kind of their own like checklist for you to understand like the documents and the preparation that you need to do. That's a little
Mhm.
bit more simplified and a little bit easier to understand than the official government checklist. So that's always a really helpful kind of first step, is just distilling that information and making sure that you, as the student who's going to go through this process, really has a sense of what you need to bring and what to expect.
Mhm.
Some places also might provide some like visa interview tips or
Uh-huh.
guidance. They may even work with you one on one if their office has the capacity to do that. But
Mhm.
AECC, of course, does offer that kind of support in our offices. So if you're looking for that, whether or not the school you're looking at offers visa help, AECC definitely will. And then in terms of kind of what's going on our side of things, one of
Mhm.
AECC USA's responsibilities, or one of the things that we take really seriously, is making sure that the institutions we partner with have really robust student support options or student support programming or things like that, so that
Mhm.
you, as the international student, are not kind of left in the dark. That we know that once you're working with us and you're looking at that school, the relationship is really strong, and that if you're going to that school, we feel really good about it. We aren't sending students places that we don't trust to take really good care of them, and that starts well before students arrive on campus. So at kind of the higher like meta level, we're looking to work with partners that we know will take care of our students even before they set foot on campus.
True. And if you're watching this video right now, we would like to let you know that been working with Tiffany, Maureen, and Ryan from ACC USA, and they've been doing a bunch of content with us. So make sure you go binge watch all of those on our YouTube channels. Or if you want to follow us on social media, you can follow any of our country handles and you will be able to find the real series there. They answer a lot more questions when it comes to studying in the US, and you definitely don't want to miss out on all the content. Okay. So the you just told us about all these different types of visas, and that they do have certain limitations to them when it comes to working out after their program. But do these visas allow students to tap into potential opportunities such as internships, on campus jobs? So can you tell us a little bit about that? Is that
Yeah,
allowed?
absolutely.
Will they have to separately apply for like a work permit?
So it's definitely an option for students to work while they are studying, but there are some rules that they need to keep in mind. And again, your immigration advisor and your international student support office is kind of like your go-to to make sure that you're staying compliant with the visa requirements. But as a kind of overview,
Mm-hmm.
internships are an option for students. They can participate in those. Some programs may require an internship, or some
Hmm.
may
Yeah,
just
as a part.
permitted, or yeah. So it just kind of, whether you're required to or whether you're just able to, may depend on the program that you enter.
Mhm.
But basically, for that, you have to apply for what's called CPT, which is curricular practical training.
Mhm.
And that is pretty easy to get. It's just you have to make sure that your immigration advisor and you will work with your department to make sure that the program, the internship that you want, does apply to your degree and is relevant to your studies. So those are
Mhm.
pretty easy to work out and make sure that you kind of check those boxes. Um, and you just need to be able to get permission for it, which you need good academic standing for. And even if you were a domestic student, if you didn't have good academic standing, you probably wouldn't qualify for the internship. So
Yeah.
that criteria is pretty much the same for everybody.
Mhm.
And then students are also eligible to work on campus while they study. So during academic terms, so while classes are in session, students are permitted to work on campus up to 20 hours per week.
Mhm.
Most students, if they do this, will be making whatever the minimum wage is in the state where they attend school. So it's not a sufficient way to like help pay down the cost of like attendance or like your bills. It's
Yeah.
for like some extra pocket money. It might help you pay for books or supplies or things like that. But it's mainly for good experience and a little extra cash on hand. Um, and then during like official academic breaks, so during the summer and during typically
Winter.
there's a break between fall and spring quarter during winter break. Students can work up to full time, so up to 40 hours per week. So they can make a little extra money if they have the time to do that. And the reason for those limitations is because on the F1 visa, your primary purpose is to be a student, to study. If you are working 40 hours per week while classes are in session, studying is not your priority. So that's the reason for that change in kind of the maximum working requirements. But many campus jobs exist for students. This is where they're going to find the most working opportunity. Internships are typically competitive. OPT, as we already discussed, is typically competitive, but on-campus jobs, while you do have to apply, they're abundant. So many students work in dining services. They may work in the residence halls. They could be doing administrative work for different offices. My offices on campus always had international student employees, so a good place to start is international admissions or the ISSS office at your institution. Tech support is another really common one, so you could work in the tech desk at your institution. So
Yeah.
lots of opportunities for students to
Yeah.
be able to make a little extra money and get some really good experience.
Fair enough. And I think it's a very fair limitation that students can work only up to 20 hours a week during, academic, the, during their academic calendar, because you're going to work 40 hours and then attend classes for, maybe 4 or 5 hours a day. You're going to be an exhausted pigeon.
It's too much. Yeah,
It's
your
too much.
studies are going to suffer.
Yeah, you need to have time to, get a good amount of sleep. You need time to catch up on your assignments, prepare for tests. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
one of the
although it might sound a little unfair sometimes, but it is necessary for your overall well-being and holistic growth.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And they say that for every 1 hour of class you have like 2 to 3 hours of like homework or studying or research that goes with that. So,
Exactly.
and that's obviously like not perfectly
That
true
is
for every
intense.
course
But
you
yeah.
take, but it's a good guideline. So if you
Yeah.
add up all those hours, you don't have time to be working more than those 20 hours per week to be
True.
doing well in your courses. And that again is your top priority on an F1 visa.
True.
There is one very strict non-negotiable rule, though, for students on an F1 visa. They cannot work off campus unless it is approved CPT or OPT. So no
Mhm.
working in off-campus restaurants, no working in local shops, cafes, anything like that is
Mhm.
not permitted. But working on campus is allowed. And as I said, there are typically tons of opportunities for that.
Yeah.
And this is getting into the nitty gritty a little bit, but
Mhm.
in order to do that, if a student is offered, I used to hire international students when I worked in one of my international admissions jobs.
Mhm.
So I had to offer them the role, and then they
Mhm.
had to show that offer to their immigration advisor. Their
Mhm.
immigration advisor would sign off on not like a super formal work permit, but just sign off saying like, okay, this student can work.
Mhm.
Um, all of our student jobs on campus were organized through our career services office. So
Mhm.
then the student had to go to career services and say, I got an offer and I got immigration permission. So now I need to like go through basically like student level human resources to get all their documents on file and everything like
Yeah.
that.
Like
Um,
the
and
onboarding process.
Exactly. And part of that for most students, especially if it's their first job in the US, is getting a social security number so that they're able to be listed and taxed and paid and everything like that in
Mhm.
like the government systems. So
Mhm.
sometimes that can cause a slight delay because it's a government entity. But as long as they have the offer, the permission, and career services, ticking their box, the Social Security Administration will provide them a number. Sometimes it just takes a little bit of time. But
Mhm.
as someone who has hired many international students, I will tell you we will absolutely wait as long as it takes for the right student. So don't worry about that.
Okay, so once the students in the US and they are starting university, the biggest challenge that they're going to face during the time of transition is adapting to on-campus life, to new culture, to a completely new environment. So, what are some of the support services that universities offer to international students to, have a smooth and healthy transition?
Very important. Um,
Yes.
all institutions will have some kind of like pre-arrival checklist,
Mhm.
typically. So they'll make sure that you understand that you need your visa, your documents, to pay your CVIS fee, $350, I believe, for an F1 visa. Um, so they'll have a list of things that you need to do kind of before you leave your home country. Oftentimes they'll also have like a list of things they suggest you pack or things that you shouldn't do and that you should definitely just take care of once you get to campus or things like that. So they'll kind of help you organize things from that perspective. And then usually they have some kind of like arrival programming. So in my
Mhm.
experience, it's been an orientation. Um, they will have all the new international students gather together. Typically, they're going to introduce themselves, which is really nice because then you already have names and faces with the people that you'll be working with throughout the entirety of your degree.
Mhm.
And there are usually also international student employees that facilitate those programs as well, uh,
Mhm.
maybe called like peer mentors or international peer students or something like that. But um, they'll be current students. So what's really nice is that you get to automatically kind of be in a community. You get to see all of your fellow new international students, and you get to meet some people that you'll see on campus and that you'll be working with regularly. So that
Yeah.
kind of helps facilitate the transition, I think. Um, and they'll talk to you. This is, again, kind of what I did as an undergrad. They'll talk to you about things that you need to set up, where to go to establish a cell phone if you need a cell phone, a good local bank to set up an account at so that you have funding in country. Um, if you need groceries, they'll make sure that you know where to go for those.
Yeah.
And depending on how robust that orientation experience is. Some institutions will offer free airport pickup or they'll help you arrange airport pickup. So they may want to know part of their pre departure checklist for you might be tell us what flight you're on and when you're landing, and we'll come pick you up. Um, Sometimes they'll even like take students to like a local Walmart or a Target or something to do some initial grocery shopping or get lamps or school supplies that they might need. So these are
That
all
is a
kind of,
really sweet gesture.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's nice and helpful. I know that when I was doing orientation as a student myself, we used to make sure that we did that because our campus was, you had to either bike or drive to
Mhm.
the nearest store, like the nearest
Mhm.
Walmart where you could get some supplies. So for all of orientation, for there would be like a shuttle that ran just back and forth every couple of hours so that students could go and do some shopping and get the things that they needed that they weren't
Yeah.
able to pack or that they didn't realize they would need.
Mm.
Many students, particularly from South and Southeast Asia, come from very hot climates. And if
Yeah.
they're going to a place in the US where it will get very cold in the winter, they may need to eventually, even if they don't need anything at the start, they may need to go buy a winter coat at some point, and they'll know where they can do that when the time comes.
Fair enough. Yeah. And if you do start your international journey with AECC, we do have pre departure sessions across all of our countries that we have offices in. And these will be held in your regional languages by our expert guidance counselors, where we'll take you through all of some the rules and regulations and laws of your choice of destination. You'll also have the opportunity to meet other students who are going to the same destination as you, so you can make friends before you even arrive at your destination. And our counselors will also walk you through what needs to be your first step as soon as you land. That is getting a SIM card, setting your phone up, and sharing your number with your friends and family in case of an emergency. So make sure you start your journey right and start it with AECC.
Yes, and that's such a nice way for students to really have a smooth transition. So they get a lot of support before they go, both
Yes,
from our partner institutions and from our offices and our local staff.
yes,
They get the support that they need as they're kind of coming in. They'll know what to expect. Every time I come back to the US, if I am traveling abroad and I am a US citizen, I get nervous going through immigrations and customs checks. And
yes.
I never have any problems, of course, but it's an intimidating experience. So a lot of times, part of that pre-arrival, from the U.S. perspective, pre-arrival
Mhm.
programming or orientation will kind of help students understand what to expect as they're
Yes.
after they've landed and they're literally crossing, the official border into the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
And then, as I said earlier, we make sure that we're partnering with schools that have a really solid support system for international students.
Mm-hmm.
So we
Yeah.
know, and our counselors know, when they send a student that they've been working with, that they've really formed a relationship with, when they send them off to the US, they're going to a good place that's going to take care of them.
Definitely, yes. So the last question I have for you for this session is how does AECC USA collaborate with universities to provide comprehensive support to international students throughout their study abroad journey in the United States?
So it really starts from the very beginning on our side. We want to make sure that our partners have good programs that they are going to give students the academic experience that they're looking for. Coming to
Yeah.
the US, as we've talked about, is a huge decision. It's a huge financial decision. It's a huge cultural change for a lot of students. So it's going to be one of the biggest choices that a student makes in their lifetime, and certainly the biggest, I would say, up to that point if you're 18 or 22 or 25 coming to the US. So we understand the gravity of that choice, and we make sure that we are partnering with institutions that are going to meet the expectations that our students have for a quality academic experience, um,
Mm-hmm.
an enjoyable on-campus experience. So we have partners that have really interesting locations. They have something unique to offer. And as I've stressed throughout our conversation today, it's really important for us that when we send our students to our partners, those partners are
Mm-hmm.
prepared to take care of them, to support them
Yeah.
throughout their journey, that they will be available and accessible even before the student sets foot on campus.
Yeah.
And that will really set them up for a lot of success throughout their time. Because as I mentioned, if you're thinking about kind of the timeline after you go through pre departure
Mm-hmm.
programming with AECC and you
Yeah.
get into your uh, arrival programming on campus in the US, the
Mm-hmm.
people you meet at that arrival programming are going to be the immigration advisors and the peer mentors that you know
Yeah.
and see and work with throughout your entire degree. And they
Yeah.
are there right away to welcome you and make sure that you know that they're a strong resource for you.
Yes. You're not alone on the journey.
Exactly. We
Yeah.
are
I
with
mean,
you every step of the way.
quite literally. Yeah. I mean, we understand that, having a pre departure and a pre arrival session does give you, like a sneak peek in what to expect and how you can prepare yourself. But eventually, when you do start your journey, it can be a little overwhelming at the start, but our counselors and our team will be available to support you whenever, wherever you need us. Yeah. Okay, so that's the end of our question session. Thank you so
All
much,
right.
Tiffany, for joining us and answering all the questions very patiently and in great detail. Yeah, do you
Yeah,
want
of
to say
course.
any piece of advice for students who wish to study abroad?
Well, first of all, I would say you've made an excellent decision. Studying abroad is one of the, again, biggest decisions you can make, but it's also going to be one of the biggest impacts you can have on your own life. My own study abroad experience really kind of set me up for the career and the life that I have now that I really enjoy. Um, and that's possible no matter what program you're going into or which institution you're going to study at. Once you've made the decision, make sure that you get the support that you need. Come to our offices, work with our counselors. As we've said, we make sure that we are with you every step of the way, and that includes everything before you leave your home country and everything after. So it's definitely easier to do it with support. I've done it both ways. I've had a lot of support in my living abroad experiences, and I've had very little support, and it's way better to do it with support.
Yes, definitely. Okay, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank
Time
you again
to-
so much for having me.
Yep. Okay, see you soon.
Bye.